This experience occurred when I was 16 years old, an age of challenge and change. I, like most boys, underwent tremendous changes both physically and mentally as I entered puberty. These changes made me emotionally unstable, and I often experienced emotional ups and downs and impulsivity. During this period, my relationship with my father became strained, and we often argued over trivial matters. I began to seek independence and tried to get rid of my dependence on him. We would often have arguments over minor things. I was confused and bored with my family. I began to question the relationship between family members and felt confused about my role in it. Sometimes I would feel alone and unappreciated, feeling that no one really understood my inner confusion and struggles. At the same time, fear of the future began to creep into my mind. I was worried about whether I would ever find my own path. At one point, I had a heated argument with my father. The reason for the argument was about my studies. At that time, I was at a critical stage in high school, facing important exams and decisions. I felt stressed and needed to focus on my studies, but my father was very strict about my academics and his expectations frustrated me. During the argument, I became more and more emotional and I couldn't stand the stress and tension in my family. I decided to leave home temporarily and go to a friend's place for a few days to seek some time to calm down. It was a hot summer day, and the continuous hot weather had been going on for almost 2 months. People were longing for a timely rainfall. It was on the last day of September that there was a change in the sky. At that time, I was playing basketball with my friends. We saw that it was going to rain, so we went back to his house. We heard the sound of raindrops hitting the glass from outside the window. We felt excited and couldn't wait to go outside the house to meet the long-awaited rainfall. We felt the change in the air. The rain gently dripped down on our bodies. While we were playing in the rain, a bolt of lightning struck me and a nearby tree. Instantly, I felt my body lose control and then fell to the ground. It happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to react in any way. As far as I can remember, I did not feel anything noticeable when the lightning struck me. No electricity passed through my body, and there was no painful sensation. The sounds around me were slowly fading. I was lying on the ground and my consciousness was becoming fuzzy. I wasn't sure if I was still alive. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in an unfamiliar place. It was as if it was an observation room, with a movie projected on the wall of the room. I was surprised to find that the clips were all scenes from my past life. One of the images struck me particularly, and it took me back to the time when I was a child. At that time, my neighbor's kid had just bought a new bicycle. He used to ride his bike around the neighborhood. I was very jealous in my heart. In that image, I saw myself creeping closer to that little boy. I wanted to make a fool of him in front of everyone. I pushed him down hard. At the time, I didn't realize the damage it was doing to him. When I saw this image here, I was shocked by my own actions. I realized the damage that this seemingly small prank had done to him. I felt guilt and remorse, acutely aware that I had acted irresponsibly and cruelly at the time. This image made me realize that hurting others not only causes them pain, but also damage to my own heart. In this observation room, I was not being judged or blamed. Suddenly, I felt the presence of a strong energy around me. I thought he was Jesus. Although I did not see his image with my own eyes, I could feel his presence and the love and warmth he radiated. In his presence, it was as if I had gained all the knowledge of the universe. All questions were answered, and they were full of deep meaning. I no longer felt confused and disoriented, everything seemed clear and meaningful. There was no verbal communication there. Because the way of communication there transcended the limits of words. I could sense a direct connection between Jesus and me in my thoughts. He understood the doubts and pains of my heart. There was nothing I could hide from him. Jesus clearly communicated to me an important message: everything is about love. The essence of this universe is love, and love is the root and driving force of all things. He showed me the power and infinite possibilities of love and gave me a deep appreciation of the importance and value of love. In addition, Jesus told me that here, time does not exist. He explained that time is just a concept, a tool created by man. Its only function is to remind us when we should do something. Here, I experienced the feeling of transcending time, where everything happens in the present moment and the past and the future are merged together. I understand that this may sound crazy or hard to understand, but here, these ideas become very clear and real. Here, too, I was able to see what it was like on Earth. I saw myself lying in a hospital bed. I was able to see clearly what was going on around me. My senses became extremely sharp and I was able to magnify and focus on what was in my field of vision. I did not feel pain, instead, I now felt very calm and serene. I heard a conversation between the doctor and my father. The doctor told my father that I had been unconscious for half an hour and that even if I woke up at this moment, I would probably have severe brain damage. I felt that the doctor was not professional and that she did not understand my state at the moment. In fact, I feel better now than I ever have. I realized that my soul was not a part of my body. In that moment, I transcended the confines of my physical body and became a silent observer. I was not interested in what was happening in the hospital, because my focus was on a higher level. I was no longer bound by the constraints of time and space. Although I cannot accurately describe this feeling in words. It left a deep imprint within me and changed my perspective on life and existence. It was at this time that Jesus made me decide to stay here or return to Earth. It was a difficult choice that left me in a state of inner conflict and struggle. Here, I felt endless love and peace. I was wrapped in an overwhelmingly beautiful energy, intimately connected to the love of God. Yet, I also saw my mother. She was crying in the hospital. I could feel the pain inside her. I knew that if I chose to stay here, she would lose me forever, which would bring her untold sorrow and pain. In the end, I made the difficult and painful decision. I chose to return to Earth and to my family. As I made my choice, Jesus sent his blessing on me. Suddenly, an invisible force began to guide me. My soul was breaking away from here. In that moment, I saw a bright flash of light that illuminated the whole scene. My soul was reconnecting with my body. I slowly felt the presence of my body and sensed the temperature and sounds around me. My consciousness returned to my body. I felt the rhythm of my breathing, the beating of my heart, and the sensation of blood flowing through my body. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the white walls of the hospital room. The moment I returned to my body, I understood that this was a rebirth. I gratefully placed my hand on my chest and felt my heartbeat. My mother's face showed surprise when she saw me awaken. She quickly came over to me, hugged me tightly, and gently said to me, "Son, you are finally awake." I felt her love wrapping around me and warming my heart. I knew that I had made the right choice. When I told my mom about the experience, she thought it was just a dream. I know that her reaction came from a lack of understanding of the supernatural experience. However, for me, it was a real and profound experience that could not be simply classified as a dream or a hallucination. At that time, the term near-death experience was not yet popular and few people talked openly about such experiences. Society had a deep prejudice against paranormal phenomena. So I chose to keep quiet and bury the experience deep inside. I knew that such an experience would not be accepted and understood by society. Over time, I have learned to accept this experience. I respect everyone's different views and beliefs about paranormal experiences. Now, 41 years later, I remain convinced that the experience was real and that it has had a profound impact on my life. Although I don't talk about it publicly, it is a constant reminder to me of the importance of love and tolerance. As the internet became more popular and information spread, I began to read articles and stories about near-death experiences on the internet. I found more and more people sharing similar experiences and feelings. Online, I found a community of understanding and accepting people sharing their own near-death experiences. I no longer felt alone. As the years passed, the term near-death experience began to become commonplace, and it became a hot topic of discussion and research. More and more books and documentaries were published. The topic is no longer ignored or marginalized, but has become a widely discussed area. I am very pleased because this means that more people are accepting this phenomenon. If someone asks me, "Do you believe that God really exists?" I would answer in the affirmative. When difficulties come, it is difficult for human beings to rely on their own strength to gain inner comfort and power. One day I found a Bible in my house. I had never read it carefully because I found its contents too cluttered. I turned to a random page that talked about the wisdom of God. I read and thought about it carefully, and I began to feel the depth of meaning. I came to understand that no matter how complex the dilemmas we face are, God's wisdom can transcend them all and give me guidance and clear direction. His wisdom will give us the courage and strength to face everything. I felt God's love and care, which gave me inner comfort and peace. After this incident, I often looked for wisdom and guidance in the Bible and applied it to my life. I became aware of the impact my actions and decisions have on myself and others. I have learned to be more humble and forgiving. I have learned to seek God's help in times of trouble and trust Him to provide solutions for me. I trust that His plan is always the best. For as long as I can remember, I have always been a lover of the water. When I was a kid, my father was a swimming instructor and he always took me and my brother to the beach. At that time, we often surfed and dived at the beach, and this way of life influenced the rest of my life. I have always had a great respect and awe for the power of the ocean. I know that the beauty of the ocean comes with its dangers. After graduating from college, I turned my hobby into a career. I became a surf photographer, focusing on capturing the moments of professional surfers in the water. I needed to find the best vantage point in the water to capture the magnificent sight of them taking on the huge waves. I have swum in waves in Hawaii and elsewhere. Each time, I was both excited and scared. I could feel the power of the giant waves and their height and speed was awe-inspiring. Sometimes I was in danger, but each time I was able to make it to shore safely. I seem to have 9 lives and have been lucky enough to escape time and time again. For me, surf photography is not just a job, it's a calling. Through my lens I hope to convey the beauty and power of the ocean and inspire a sense of reverence for nature. I know it's not an easy path, but I would give anything to pursue my deepest passion. Whether I'm swimming in huge waves or standing on the beach watching the waves roll in, I feel incredibly happy and content. This lifestyle has become an indispensable part of my life. However, I am also aware of the dangers of the ocean, and on November 8, 2013, I experienced a terrible accident. The waves were unusually rough that day. The pulsating waves kept crashing against the shoreline, creating impressive swells. Even though I had experienced bigger waves, I felt an inexplicable sense of tension and unease in my mind that day. Some voice was telling me that this surfing might bring trouble. However, I ignored this warning because I was confident in my surfing skills. Every surf was a confrontation with the ocean. And I thought I could handle them. But at that very moment, a huge wave suddenly came at me that was higher than any wave that had come before. I struggled to control my balance and tried to avoid this huge wave, but it swiftly swept me in. I was knocked down by the tremendous impact and lost my sense of direction and balance. I was engulfed by the tumbling wave and my body was completely out of control. I tried to swim toward the surface, but I kept being pulled downward by the incoming current. I felt helpless and scared, I was in danger of drowning. I desperately searched for an escape, but my strength gradually ran out and my breathing became difficult. Suddenly, I appeared in a dark space. I could not see anything here. I felt very scared and confused. I was surrounded by walls. I reached out and groped the walls around me. I took each step carefully, trying to find a clue or an exit. I walked for a long time without finding any exit. The space was like an endless maze, with no exit at all. The walls stretched infinitely upward, as if I could not see its height. Every step I took was accompanied by the echo of my footsteps, which made my mood heavier. I put my hand on the wall and felt very cold. In this endless maze, the concept of time and space became blurred. I began to feel desperate and lonely, not knowing how to get out of this state. Suddenly, I noticed a faint light flickering, like a ray of hope. I kept staring at that faint light as if it was my only hope. It flickered in the darkness, bringing me a glimmer of warmth and comfort. I moved in the direction of that light, hoping to escape as soon as possible. My whole body was filled with courage and determination. I was getting closer to that light and I could feel its warmth. Eventually, I got out of that dark space. After entering the light, I saw a white tunnel. The tunnel continued upward. I began to move upward. The walls of the tunnel were smooth and white, emanating a sacred atmosphere. It was as if I was being lifted up by an invisible force that was guiding me forward. As I moved upward, my mind was filled with peace and happiness. Finally, I reached the end of the tunnel. A magnificent scene unfolded before my eyes. I had come to a beautiful place. The lush flowers and plants emitted a charming fragrance, and the clear lake shone with crystal light. I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and happiness, and my heart was filled with gratitude. Here, I felt true freedom and peace. Suddenly, I heard a beautiful piece of music. It was a kind of music I had never heard before. The music had a strong sense of rhythm, from upbeat to slow, from high to low, and each melody made me feel delighted and moved. I could not contain my emotions, and every note touched my heart deeply. This music made me feel very close to it. It not only has a wonderful melody, but also a wonderful power. It makes me feel closely connected to the world. My soul was baptized here. Here, I feel that my body becomes exceptionally light, as if I have wings. I can fly in the sky. I feel the breeze blowing gently on my cheeks. The sunlight sprinkled on my body, giving me endless energy and joy. I soar freely in the sky and enjoy the scenery. I am like a free little bird. I flew over mountains and rivers. I touched the softest clouds in the sky. A spectacular waterfall appeared before my eyes. The water drops down from high above, like floating silk. I saw a young girl next to the waterfall. She had long brown hair. I stopped beside her and greeted her. There was a sparkle of wisdom and kindness in her eyes. I don't know why, but I felt a kindred spirit with her. I asked her curiously, "What is this place?" I had never seen such a beautiful sight. She replied gently, "This is heaven, a place of peace and beauty. Here, all pain and distress will disappear." Her words shocked and surprised me, and my mouth opened wide in disbelief. I had imagined the beauty of heaven, but it was even more beautiful than I had imagined. She also invited me to her house, and I accepted her invitation. We flew together through the dense woods and came to a cottage. Her home was a warm and natural place, surrounded by flowers and green grass dotted around. In her home, we tasted delicious food together, and laughter and joy filled the room. She also took me for a walk along the creek to appreciate the beauty of nature. I felt incredibly relaxed and happy in her company. Her kindness and warmth made me feel like I was at home. Finally, she told me that there are still many people on earth who love me and who are worried about me. I had to go back to them. Although heaven was wonderful, my mission was not yet complete. My heart became very complicated. I could not leave this place, but longed to return to my family. She gently touched my shoulder and gave me warm encouragement and support. She said, "You are a brave and loving person, and people on earth need your presence. Return to them with the blessings of heaven." I nodded my head. As we said goodbye, she asked me, "Do you know why you met me here?" I shook my head in confusion, curious about her question. She smiled and continued, "I am your sister." I was very surprised to hear this. My parents had never told me that I had a sister. She seemed to see my confusion. Then she went on to say, "You will get the answer you want when you go back." At this very moment, I felt my soul trembling. This feeling was getting stronger and stronger. The scene in front of me started to become blurred, and the white tunnel surrounded me again. My soul trembled more and more intensely, as if an invisible force was leading me. I knew that I was about to return to Earth and to my family. As I traveled through the tunnel, the white glow faded away. I was surrounded by seawater and the water pressure made my body feel heavy. Just when I could barely stand it, a bright light suddenly illuminated the bottom of the water. The light was like an invisible arm that freed me from the darkness. I had been spotted. They were a search and rescue team. They were armed with breathing equipment and quickly approached me. One of the search and rescue team members swam to me and held my hand tightly. They quickly brought me to the surface. As I breathed fresh air again, I felt very lucky. I was pulled to the rescue boat. I was taken to a nearby hospital. My family also arrived at the hospital, their eyes full of worry. My parents hugged me tightly. The doctors examined my body in detail and didn't find anything too serious. They just told me to go back and get some rest. The day after I returned home, my mother and I sat on the couch. I took a deep breath and decided to share my experience in heaven with my mother. "Mom, there is something I want to tell you," I said in a soft voice. She nodded. "Before I was rescued, I went on an amazing journey. I traveled through a white tunnel and entered a beautiful place. I met a woman. She caressed my shoulder and offered me encouragement and support. She said she was my sister." My mother's voice began to tremble and she shed tears of sadness. I held her hand tightly and I felt her sadness. "My child, I never told you because this is my most painful memory. Before you were born, there was a car accident in our family. Your sister tragically passed away in that accident. She was only 7 years old at the time." My mother's voice carried endless sorrow. My heart immediately heaved and I looked at my mother in disbelief. I never thought I had a sister. "After the accident, I felt it was my fault, I didn't protect her," my mother continued. "This painful experience has always bothered me, and I didn't want to remember it, so I didn't tell you about it. I understand the pressure and self-blame my mother has been under, and I know she is also in great pain inside. I comforted my mother by saying that it was not your fault. You are a loving mother. Please don't blame yourself anymore. My sister wouldn't want to see you in such pain. Now my sister is living a happy life in heaven." The mother raised her head, and her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Slowly, her expression became softer. Mother took a deep breath and then dried her tears. I hugged my mother tightly. And we felt each other's warmth and love. Although the loss of my sister was a painful memory, it also made me understand more about the preciousness of life and the importance of family. I will always miss my sister.